With the San Jose Sharks set to announce David Quinn as their next head coach, all of the NHL coaching changes for this offseason appear to be completed. There were a lot of changes this year, and we're going to take a look at all of them coming right up. Hey everybody, today we are going to be talking about coaches, specifically coaching changes made in the NHL this offseason, and there have been quite a few of them. I've been waiting to talk about coaches until kind of everything got done and everything got set, but now it appears that every team has their coach for this coming season, at least to start this coming season. We'll see who makes it the full year and who doesn't. But there's a lot of new coaches to talk about, and I want to get into it here, kind of go through each one and see how the fit is with their new team. And also, just before we start, I want to say that interim coaches who had the interim tag removed and became the official full-time head coach, like Jay Woodcroft in Edmonton and Marty St. Louis in Montreal, are not listed here because they've already been coaching those teams, but have just had the interim tag removed. These are new coaches going to a new team, starting fresh, and let's get into it. So here is our list for coaching changes this offseason, and there have been 10 coaching changes here, which is a lot for one offseason. I mean, that's almost a third of the league has a new coach coming into this new year in 2022-2023. But let's go through them here. First off, Jim Montgomery is now the head coach of the Boston Bruins. They kind of surprisingly and very controversially fired Bruce Cassidy this past offseason and have decided to go in a different direction despite making the playoffs last year. And now Jim Montgomery is the new head coach of the Bruins. This is one that I really kind of want to wait back before making a judgment on, because I think there's a lot of potential for this to go fairly well. But at the same time, I think there's issues with the Bruins that's not really the coach's fault, much more roster related, that could see Boston kind of struggle this coming season, and then it won't be on the coach, even though it's going to look like a lousy first year for Montgomery. Overall, I think that, this was definitely not the worst hiring Boston could have made, and I think Montgomery's got a chance to do some good things there. Chicago, the Blackhawks, obviously in full-on rebuild mode at this point, have brought in Luke Richardson to be their coach for hopefully at least the next few years. I certainly hope they're not basing his performance on wins and losses next season, because this is a team that is very clearly in a full-on rebuild at this point. They're basically tanking this upcoming season already with the moves that they've made this offseason. I like Luke Richardson a lot. I think he's done very well as an assistant in the NHL. I think he showed a lot of promise as one of those up-and-coming assistants that should have be getting a head coaching job, and now he does. Unfortunately, it's on a team that's not going to win very many games next season, but I think Richardson's a guy that is younger, and you can kind of build with as the Blackhawks go through this rebuild. So I thought Richardson was actually a very good choice for Chicago. I just hope that they understand that this isn't going to be a quick fix, and that they're going to have to let him grow with the team over the course of a number of years and not just give him 2 or 3. Dallas, Peter DeBoer, after not renewing, they didn't really fire Rick Bowness. They just didn't renew his contract. His contract was up. They didn't bring back Rick Bowness. So they bring in Peter DeBoer, who was let go by Vegas after Vegas missed the playoffs this past season. Dallas did make the playoffs, but was out in the first round against Calgary. They were obviously looking to make a change. I've never been a big Peter DeBoer fan, personally. Whether he was with the Sharks, the Devils, Vegas, wherever he's been, I've never been a big fan. We'll see how it goes. Dallas is a very interesting team. They've got like a few pieces that I really, really like, and then they've also got guys that I think are on really bad contracts, and it seems like they're a team that has a few guys bail them out and make them at least a playoff level team. They sneak into a wild card spot or a lower playoff seed, something like that. And then they're never really bad, but they're never really that great either. Obviously, they had that crazy run in 2020 in the bubble where they went to the final, but that was in the bubble. They also got ridiculous goaltending in those playoffs, which maybe Jake Ottinger can replicate, because I do think Jake Ottinger is one of the best young goaltenders in the NHL. I think it's going to be an interesting year for the Stars. I could see them being a wild card team again, or I could see them missing the playoffs this coming season. We'll see how it goes. DeBoer, I'm not a big fan, but he is, usually coaching a playoff level team. So we'll see if he can get the Stars back into the postseason, at least as a wild card team this coming year. The Detroit Red Wings, this might be my favorite of all of the new coaches. Derek Lalonde is now the head coach of the Detroit Red Wings. He's been an assistant with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Obviously, tons of experience as, in the assistant role. Stanley Cups, tons of playoff success, learning from John Cooper, who's one of the best coaches in the league. And now he goes to Detroit, a team that looks like they are taking that next step out of the rebuilding process. Has had a huge offseason this year, bringing in a bunch of high-quality players, making significant improvements to the roster to where it looks like the Red Wings are legitimately trying to compete for a playoff spot. And now they bring in a young coach who's done a fantastic job as an assistant on one of the best teams in the NHL. Obviously, there's a lot of familiarity between Stevie Y and the Tampa Bay Lightning, and there's a lot of, between Detroit and Tampa because, Yzerman went from Tampa to Detroit as the GM. So there's a lot of just interaction between those two franchises. And now you've got a Tampa assistant who's now the head coach in Detroit. And I just think he's going to do very good things with this up-and-coming Red Wings team, who should be significantly better this coming season. And I cannot wait to see what he's able to do with this young team in Detroit. So Derek Lalonde is my favorite of the new coach signings here, or hirings this offseason. I think the sky is the limit with him in Detroit. The Florida Panthers bring in Paul Maurice, who, after leaving the Winnipeg Jets, kind of took a little bit of time off. And he's been a long-time coach, been in the league a long time. He's coached some very good teams. He's also coached some very not good teams. Hasn't had the best playoff record in his career, but is a veteran coach. And for a team like Florida, who... they won the President's Trophy last season. Like, they're there roster-wise. They have a good lineup. They scored a ton of goals last year. They're just kind of missing that one more thing that they need to make that jump and get over that hump in the postseason, which they haven't been able to do. We'll see if Paul Maurice is able to do it. I'm very 50-50 on this one. Certainly not one of my favorites, just because Paul Maurice doesn't have a great playoff record for the most part. For a guy who's been in, coaching in the NHL as long as he hasn't had a lot of, real deep playoff success or real deep playoff runs. So for a team like Florida, whose next step is making a deep playoff run, you think they want to bring in a coach that maybe has done that before. But Maurice has coached a lot of NHL games. There's no doubt about that. And maybe a veteran coach is what this team needed after they let Andrew Brunette go, who... filled in very nicely last season after everything that happened with Joel Quenneville. But, obviously the playoff loss to Tampa, getting embarrassed in round number 2, did not make upper management happy in Florida, so they don't bring back Brunette. And now Maurice is going to take the reins. We'll see if he can get them deeper into the playoffs, but I certainly have my doubts. So next on the list, we have the New York Islanders, who promote assistant Lane Lambert to head coach after relieving Barry Trotz of his duties. And similar to Boston, I think this was one of the more surprising coach firings of this offseason. where, Barry Trotz, who's highly regarded as one of the best coaches in the NHL, was let go by the Islanders after one bad season where there were, let's face it, a lot of extenuating outside circumstances that had a lot to do with the Islanders season being as bad as it was. But clearly, Islanders upper management, Lou Lamoriello, was not happy with them missing the playoffs. Trotz is gone, and Lane Lambert takes over now. This is going to be interesting to see how this plays out because, Lambert comes from the Barry Trotz coaching tree. So, what's going to be similar? What's going to be different? Every coach is their own person, but when you've been mentored by somebody, certainly some parts of that coach that's been mentoring you is going to, find its way down and become your style as well. So I'm going to be interested to see with Lambert, what does he carry on from Trotz, and then what does he kind of change to make this his own era in with the Islanders. So we'll see how that one goes. That one, I'm kind of feeling similar to how I am with Jim Montgomery. I think there's some potential there. I don't think it's a bad hiring. I just kind of one of those that I want to sit back and wait and see how it turns out, because I think there's a lot of different ways that it could go, and it's going to be interesting to see which way it does. The Philadelphia Flyers, definitely one of the more talked about coach hirings this offseason, bring in John Tortorella. And obviously, John Tortorella is a figure that is either absolutely loved or absolutely hated around the NHL. Very specific John Tortorella mentality. And he demands a lot out of his players, and his players either love that or his players can't get out of there fast enough, depending on, how they handle it. So it's going to be interesting. Now, honestly, I don't have high expectations for the Flyers this season, but it has nothing to do with the coach and everything to do with that roster and where that roster's at right now. I don't think it matters who the coach is. I think Philadelphia could bring back Scotty Bowman and they'd still not make the playoffs this season because the roster is that bad. So I don't think Philly winning or losing is going to have a whole lot to do with the coach right now. But we'll see what kind of effort John Tortorella can get out of that team. And I think that's the big thing, is that too many times over the past couple of years, Philadelphia has just kind of phoned it in and looked like they didn't even want to be out on the ice. I think if there's any positive that you can look for with Tortorella as the Flyers coach, it's can he get a consistent effort out of this team? And can, even if they're losing, at least play hard? And if he can get that, then I think that's successful in Philadelphia right now. The team that we were all waiting on, the San Jose Sharks, the last team to hire a new head coach, decide on David Quinn. Now, pickings were certainly slim at this point, late in the offseason as it is, or I guess, later in the offseason is for coach hirings, at least. I mean, we're still not that late in the offseason as a whole, but as far as hiring a new coach, San Jose was the last team to do it. So they didn't have the full complement of candidates out there. They decided to go with David Quinn. Obviously, Quinn did not have a very successful run as the Rangers head coach. I'm personally not a big David Quinn guy. I was extremely happy when the Boston Bruins did not hire David Quinn. I'm very glad they went with Montgomery over Quinn. And we'll see how it goes. San Jose is another team that, I mean, they're not going to be good no matter who the coach is. They're not a team that's at that point right now where they're going to be good. So, it almost feels like Quinn might be a placeholder here for the Sharks while they go through some tough times before they start getting on the other side of what needs to be a full rebuild in San Jose. I don't know if they'll commit to that or not, but they certainly took a step in the right direction by trading Brent Burns this offseason. But there's going to be some tough years in San Jose before it gets better, and it feels like David Quinn is probably just a placeholder there. Vegas goes with Bruce Cassidy. Obviously, it was a little surprising when he got let go by the Bruins, after making the playoffs, year after year after year in Boston. But they decided to move on, and Vegas said, okay, thank you very much. Vegas was not happy after not making the playoffs this past season. They fired DeBoer. DeBoer goes to Dallas, and Bruce Cassidy is now the coach of the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, hoping that Vegas is a little bit healthier this year than they were last season. Cassidy might be able to get a solid season or two out of this team. Obviously, Vegas has some major cap problems, and exactly what their depth is going to look like come the start of next season is very much a question. But Cassidy's been a very, very successful coach in the NHL, especially this last tenure with the Bruins. He won a lot of games. Boston was a playoff team every season. And, he's done a very good job of getting teams to the playoffs. And then, he's won in the playoffs as well. I mean, the Bruins went to the Cup final in 2019. So, this obviously is, one of the more, Cassidy was one of the more sought after coaches out there on the market. And he's now with the Vegas Golden Knights. And finally, last coaching change this offseason, Winnipeg Jets hire Rick Bowness after he was let go by Dallas. Bowness had a short but fairly successful tenure with the Dallas Stars. Obviously, they went on that pretty crazy cup run in 2020. They just ended up losing in the final to Tampa Bay. But that was pretty crazy for them even to get to that point, that deep into the playoffs. That was not the expectation for sure going in. And then, it was kind of up and down after that. 2021 was, pretty and then this past season, they made the playoffs as a wild card team, and Jake Ottinger was very strong, and Dallas always had very good defenses under Rick Bowness. That was kind of always their team. Under him was that they were very tight defensively, very low goals against, good goaltending. But they also struggled to score a lot. And that, I think, ended up being their downfall a lot of the time, is that they couldn't put the puck in the net. Their goals against totals were very low, but their goals for totals were extremely low as well. And then, obviously, Dallas decided to go in a different direction after, losing in the first round of Calgary this past playoffs. So Bowness was available. He goes to Winnipeg. Winnipeg was kind of in shambles after Paul Maurice stepped down. Lowry came in and didn't do a very good job. Winnipeg had a brutal season last year. They're just trying not to repeat that again. So I think Bowness is going to try and tighten things up a little bit defensively in Winnipeg. We'll see if the offense takes a hit because of it, like it did in Dallas or not. But, we'll see. I think, again, Winnipeg's probably wild card team at best, and maybe even missing the playoffs. And I don't know necessarily that the coach has a whole lot to do with that. I think that might just be where that team's at right now, roster-wise. And we'll see. I mean, if Bowness can get this team to the playoffs, if they make the postseason in any way, that is a win for the Winnipeg Jets. So we'll see how that one goes. But all in all, those are your coaching changes for this offseason, 10 of them. And we'll see how they work out. Some of these guys, like always, some of these guys, it's probably going to go pretty well and it's going to be successful. And for some of these guys, they're probably not going to last very long. It's just about which ones work and which ones don't. But those are your new coaches on new teams for the 2022-2023 NHL season. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our merchandise store, membership, and donations are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and I'll talk to you all very soon.